came and died for us. Any other thoughts?
After you have gathered the produce of your threshing floor and winepress. Foreigners, Jehovah your God will choose, because Jehovah your God will bless you in all your crops and in all your work, so that you are able to be full of joy. 3 times a year all your men are to appear in the presence of Jehovah your God in the place which he will choose, at the festival of Matzah, at the festival of Shavuot, and at the festival of Sukkot. They are not to show up before Jehovah empty-handed, but every man is to give what he can in accordance with the blessing Jehovah your God has given you.
Start out with some comments or questions. Okay, so in Deuteronomy 16:2, it says, "You must sacrifice the Passover from the flock or herd to Yahweh. You're in the place where He chooses to locate His name." So one of the requirements is the Passover lamb could only be slain where? Jerusalem, and it could only be slain within the at the Temple Mount. And who was the ones that were required to do the slaying of that? The Levitical priest. And where were they supposed to eat the Passover lamb? In the precincts, in the city of Jerusalem. And so I know, so today, we obviously, we don't have a temple, we don't do a Passover lamb offering. For a common meal, it's okay, but for the Passover service, it cannot be done. So as we keep the memorial as best we can, we're keeping it outside of Israel. We can only keep elements of it, again, as a memorial and as a rehearsal for that time where we will next year, someday that will come to pass next year in Jerusalem. So that's a thought there. Um, Go ahead, Nancy has a comment.
So we know that the Feast of Unleavened Bread is a 7-day feast, and we know the Feast of Sukkot has 8 days with
Yeah.
a day added to it. But there's also the verse that we are supposed to keep Shavuot in Jerusalem as well. But it doesn't say here Feast of Weeks. Is that a 7-day feast as well? And are we supposed to be gathering like the other 2 feasts that we gather for?
Well, so 3 times a year, all males are supposed to appear before Yahweh. And even the males that can walk, as the children, if the children can walk on their own, they're one of the ones required to go up. So the way I understand the 3 times is the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Feast of Shavuot, and the Feast of Tabernacles.
And so is that supposed to be a 7-day feast, Shavuot, or just?
No, there's no place where it mentions that Shavuot is a 7-day feast. It's 1 day. From my research, Joe.
What about when they were going to have the harvest of grapes?
you prepare it?
Yes.
That's the question.
Yeah.
What's your leaning on that, Chris?
I don't know. I just brought it up.
Thanks, Chris.
I think what it's saying, I know like in tradition, they say it like the first Passover was in haste, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have time to prepare. You don't have time to, it's all done as like a whole, where they say in the temple, you can prepare it.
Yeah.
You can dress it. You give it all that seasoning. You can do all that, like you can cut it all up and it can be cooked and seasoned and all as you're not one whole lamb over a spit.
Right.
So that's kind of what I think they say, but it's kind of interesting.
So with what he just said, so how would we prepare it today? Exactly. Thank you. We can't. Okay. All right. We have questions? Okay, give him the mic. No. Oh, that was a trick question? Well, I was hoping everybody was listening when I asked that question. Okay. Surely somebody has a comment. I know it's kind of a short, so I'll tell you what, I'll go ahead and read some commentary on this. 3 times a year. So who's required to go up to Jerusalem for the pilgrim festivals? At least the males. So Sukkot pilgrims streaming. I actually have a picture. Maybe I can pull it up here. I have it on my hand on my notes here. This was in 1945. They have a picture of them streaming up to the Temple Mount, and let's see, where's it at? I got a new computer, so bear with me. I think that's my Word document. Yeah, it is. So let's expand this, and so right there. So that was in 1945. Now, I don't know exactly where they're heading to Jerusalem, but I don't know. They didn't really say where this picture was taking. So 3 times in a year, all your males shall appear before Yahweh, your God, in the place which he chooses at the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Feast of Weeks, and the Feast of Booths. Moses told the men of Israel to make the pilgrimage to the temple 3 times a year. A man was to bring with him every son who was old enough to walk on his own. When they arrived at the temple, they were to offer a burnt offering at minimum, even if it was only a burnt offering. Those with the means to do so offered larger, more expensive sacrifices. The took the commandment a step further and interpreted it also to require distributing alms to the poor prior to the festival. Our master and his disciples seem to have observed this custom. The commandment to appear before Yahweh during the pilgrimage festivals applies to the Jewish males in the land of Israel with the temple and the Levitical system in place, although the commandment was not incumbent. Now they say the commandment was not incumbent upon Gentile believers, but I would say that in Exodus 12, it mentions that strangers that wanted to join Israel and take on and the commandments that they were to follow, they would become as Israelites, okay, and kind of adopted into the family. And I believe that they were at that point required also to participate. I have a comment here from Nancy.
So when we're looking at Deuteronomy 16 and we go to verse 11, and this is talking about the Festival of Weeks, it says, "And rejoice before the Lord your God at the place he will choose as a dwelling place for his name. You, your sons and your daughters, your male and female servants, the Levites in your town, and the foreigners, the fatherless and the widow living among you. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and follow carefully these decrees. And then it continues on in the Feast of Tabernacles at verse 15. I think it's verse 15. No, sorry, verse 14. Be joyful at your festival, you, your sons and daughters, your male and female servants, and the Levites, the foreigners, the fatherless, and the widows who live in your town. But then when we go down to verse 16, it says 3 times a year, all your men must appear before the Lord at the place he will choose at the festival of unleavened bread, the festival of weeks, and the festival of tabernacles. No one should appear before the Lord empty-handed. So I think that what this is saying is that everyone is supposed to be there to celebrate, but you have to go as a male to the temple to appear before God and to offer a sacrifice, which the women and children, the slaves, don't have to go to do that. But that our family members are all supposed to be together celebrating, is my understanding of what the scriptures say.
Yeah, that's one view to look at it. I kind of look at it as it's at minimum the males required, because the place that he chose, the place's name is Jerusalem. Okay, the Temple Mount is a part of that. Okay, and so the offerings were done at the Temple Mount. So I think it could still apply. Again, it's just another viewpoint that at minimum all males had to go up. Okay, and but it also says inclusively that your sons, your daughters, and in the foreign, they could come too, if they wanted. So I think it's just showing that they can come, but I think God's understands that traveling, the distance, the way they had to travel. He understood that there's things that that may make it very difficult, and so that's another view. So any other thoughts, Nick? There's a
Okay, got to be smarter than the mic. There's another thing too with matters of uncleanness. Okay, so there is certain things that would not allow certain people to be able to go up and celebrate because of their uncleanness and how it would be transmitted to other people. So they would have needed to stay home or stay away.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why it specifically says the males, because there are certain situations where a woman has things go on in her life through child producing children and everything else that would make them, according to the Torah, unclean, and they were not allowed to contact anyone or anything like that. So that's another reason for that, because there's several instances in the scripture where women would have had children and they stayed back. It says specifically they stayed back because of certain situations. So I'm not going to get into all of that, but I was just explaining that's another reason as well for that statement.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments? I'll continue to read some commentary here. We have another comment. We have one up here, Todd.
A lot of times these feel like commands and thou shalt and do it this way, and there's certainly a lot of beauty in that prescriptive language. But I love what Nancy read, and how we're to come rejoicing because he's blessed us. Yeah. And wow, that just kind of puts it in perspective. We get to go worship him where he put his name, and because he blessed us all throughout the year, our barns are overflowing, and we get to bring some back and share and love and bless others and bring it as a gift to Yahweh. That's pretty incredible to me.
Yeah. Well, we know that Yeshua, his family went up, Joseph and Mary, and then they lost Yeshua in the crowd when they left. I think it was 3 days before they realized that either they had a very large family, and or the group that they were with was very large, but anyway, that was interesting. Okay, any other thoughts? When Yeshua was a boy, this actually plays right into that. When Yeshua was a boy, his parents made regular trips to Jerusalem to celebrate the pilgrim festivals. As it says, they went up there according to the custom of the feast. In the Gospel, in Luke 2:42, the Gospel of John depicts Yeshua and the 12 faithfully attending the festivals in Jerusalem. In John 2:13, he traveled to Jerusalem for the Passover. In John 4, he returned to Galilee from a festival in Jerusalem, possibly Shavuot. In John 5, he went back to Jerusalem for another festival. In John 6, the Passover was near. We assume he went up, as his custom was. In John 7, he attended the Sukkot festivals in the temple. In John 12, he went back to Jerusalem for his last Passover. In the days of the Master, the roads of Zion flowed like rivers of people as hundreds of thousands of Jews converged on Jerusalem for the festivals. The psalmist refers to the pilgrim festivals when he says, "How blessed is the man in whose heart are the highways to Zion." Psalms 84:6. The pilgrims on the roads sang the psalms of ascent. That's another thing I brought into this. The psalms of ascent as they ascended to the house of God. And if you're ever planning to go to Jerusalem, the last time I was there in 2022, they were still working on the pilgrimage road from the Pool of Shalom, which is down in the city of David, all the way up to the Temple Mount. They discovered it, and we actually had as a tour guide the guy that was in charge once they found that to excavate it, and Sharon, I think, was his last name, but he got to be one of our tour guides with Rico, and it was still under construction, but he had the key to the door to be able to go in and see it while it was under construction, and it was about halfway there, and it was the original stone road that went up. What happens every time the city got destroyed and the rubble, they would just build on top of the rubble, and when it got destroyed, they built. So it's like 30 to 40 feet under the city of Jerusalem, and when they found this, so they have to build all kinds of framework to keep the ground from falling in, and it doesn't interrupt what's built on top of it. But my understanding is now they have that complete. So if you get to go to Jerusalem, make sure that's one of the places you get to go. But as they would ascend up that road, they would sing the Psalms of Ascent. Let's see. After the destruction of the temple and the fall of Jerusalem, the pilgrims no longer ascended to the holy city for the pilgrimage festivals. The roads of Zion are in mourning because no one comes to the appointed feast. That's Lamentations 1:4. The psalmist laments, "These things I remember and pour out my soul within me, for I used to go along with the throng and lead them in procession to the house of God, with the voice of joy and thanksgiving, a multitude keeping the festival," Psalms 42 and verse 5. When our Master comes again, this is from First Fruits of Zion, by the way. We're going through a Bible study for a year with them right now on Wednesday nights. So if you're interested, see Ray Johnson. When our Master comes again, however, the roads of Zion will once more rejoice with the sound of the widow who are in your towns. Deuteronomy 16:14. All nations will ascend for the annual pilgrimages, bearing gifts of tribute and offerings of praise to the one true God, who will reign out of Jerusalem. This anticipation of the coming kingdom explains why we conclude each of these pilgrim festivals with the words, "at least for Passover next year in Jerusalem." So that's just a short commentary on the requirement to go up to the temple 3 times a year.
So Mike, I Googled real quick to see what the songs of ascent are, and they are Psalms 20 through Psalm 34. And Dr. Google was kind enough to share the meaning of each of those. Oh, sorry, 120. Yeah, 120 to 134. Sorry
So
about that.
120 to 134, yeah.
Yeah, so 120 is the prayer for deliverance from deceit. 121, the Lord is our keeper. 122, joy in Jerusalem. 123 is a plea for mercy. 124, God is our help. 125, for trust and security. For 126, restoration and joy. 127, God's provision. 128, blessed family life. 129, victory over affliction. 130, waiting for redemption. 131, humble trust. 132, God's promise to David. 133, beauty of unity. And 134, the final blessing.
Yeah, it's even highlighted in your, it basically says the songs of ascent. But they would sing these as they would journey up that road. So I think the next time I go, I'm going to be singing these songs of ascent as I walk up that road.
They also do the Hallel Psalms during this week, which is 113 through 118, the Hallel Psalms.
113 through 118.
Yeah. Somebody has titles on those.
All right. Any other comments? Harvey has one over here. Oh. He's got a little maze to walk through this morning.
And then we were able to walk 5 miles of the Jericho Road from Jericho on heading up toward Jerusalem. And Jericho